It's the second race of the weekend for the big guns. It's the Avon Tyres Caterham 7 Championship. A familiar face up front is Championship leader Stephen Nuttall. Stephen, you had a bit of a fight for the overall win yesterday, or were you toying with the field?
No, it was a tough race. There's a bit of chess towards the end, trying to figure out where you need to be. But yeah, don't get me wrong, it's bloody hard work.
Best of luck, Stephen, to hang on to that. The whistle's been blown. The cars are leading the way. So it's 46 and 10. It's Stephen Nuttall and Henry Heaton on the front row yet again. The field may be diminished, but the racing still just as hard. Back over to Scott in the commentary box.
Thanks indeed, Chris. Yes, indeed. The top level championship for Caterham Motorsport is out on track now. The Avon Tyres Caterham 7 Championship UK, which is contesting its final rounds here this weekend in order to crown our second ever British Caterham champion. Now, I should please reiterate and stress and back up what Chris was saying. Yes, it is a smaller field than we normally have because due to other drivers having other commitments or unable to make it for this weekend. However, don't let the small number fool you because the racing is still just as incredible. Just Chris, as we saw yesterday. Again, forget there's only 6 cars. All of them in the opening stages were in that pack together, putting on an incredible race at the front, which means that arguably the phrase goes, you only need 2 cars to make a race. We have 6, and it's actually put on quite a good show for the first part of the race anyway.
Yeah, and all the people you're seeing here have championship interests. So we've got Nuttall there looking to solidify that win. We've got Heaton, we're trying to work out whether he can actually make it to the lead of the championship in this race, but we'll work that in a minute. But all the front 3 here are champions of their own right. We've also got Gordon Sawyer, who had a bit of a mishap yesterday, another champion, and Swan Dixon was looking absolutely the man on form. He looked like he might well get that podium, but didn't quite manage it over the line. So yeah, keep an eye out for all of them. And Chris Aubrey now got another sort of race-long bit of experience. He missed out on a day's testing, and I think that showed a bit yesterday. So yeah, 6 cars, but it's absolutely a top quality grid of 6.
Let's take you through them then. Stephen Nuttall starts on pole position by virtue of his win yesterday. Henry Heaton will start alongside him on the front row of the grid. Then it's James Murphy, race winner from Donington, Jake Swan Dixon, who's been looking in good form yesterday, then Chris Aubrey, and then Gordon Sawyer, who, as we said, was in that lead group and then had the misfortune of just getting a little bit too hot just at the bottom of the mountain.
I actually spoke to him yesterday, and there was actually went 3 wide into the mountain, and he was on the outside, got a little bit of a clip, and unfortunately that spun him round.
Yeah, that'll do that to you if you go 3 wide to the mountain. It's probably not particularly one of these Caterhams, but he'll be kicking himself because I think just we can see possibly what that might have done to affect him in championship-wise. It's now put him. He's still 3rd, but he's now nearly 50 points behind Stephen Nuttall on drop scores coming to this race. So he's going to need to push hard to even stand a chance of possibly even getting back into 2nd place.
Yeah, I think that might have solidified his 3rd place in the championship. Although James Murphy is quite keen to try and see what he can do. He will have to have some good results and rely on Gordon not having such a good one. You will see on these 7 UK cars is the slick tyres. They're working the tyres and the brakes extremely hard on this outlap. It's so important to get temperature into those tyres. They've been cold all overnight and they haven't had a chance to run on track yet, so they really need to have some temperature put into them. So you will see them working ever so hard to sort of brake and turn constantly around this green flag formation lap.
And Chris, of course, knows all about these cars, particularly these new 21 spec cars, because you've been racing them all season. Obviously, we talked about the top of the broadcast. You should have been out for this weekend, but of course, unfortunately, instant qualified meant they cut you weekend early, which is really, really sad to see. But and ultimately, as well, this weekend would have also been your swan song because you were calling it in terms of committing to full seasons. So, and this is your final, like full season's worth of race. I think you said you were going to try and pop in and do the very occasional race every now and again, maybe, but ultimately in terms of a false campaign, this was going to be your farewell weekend.
It was going to be my farewell weekend. I said farewell a little bit earlier than I thought I would, but nevertheless, it would have been nice to be out there racing with them, of course. And it's very strange to be sat here commentating out there, to be fair. But yes, it would have been my last weekend. But I've had a great 8-9 years in motorsport, and not many people get to say that. And so I'm very proud and happy and grateful that I've managed to do that. And thanks to everyone who helped support and do that along the way. And thanks to all the fellow drivers as well for make it such a great fun thing to go and do on a weekend. So yeah, very, very privileged to have been able to do that.
And you've done something which every driver wants to do. You've won a championship as well, so you've got that as memories too.
Ticked a few boxes along the way. I've won championships, lost them, won races, lost them, everything you can imagine, and now had a nice big crash as well to finish things off. All box ticks ticked.
It's not quite the way he wants to finish their racing career, but as we can admit, but and the great thing is, of course, that being the Combox here, the one strength of that is that you've been and done every single step of the Caterham ladder with Caterham Motorsport. You've done the Academy, you've done Road Sport, you've done 270Rs, you've been and done it and won the championship in the equivalent of 310Rs, and then of course you've been racing these cars this year as well. So I think, to be fair, there's probably not that many people, there's not many people that alongside you that can boast the same sort of experience that you've got, probably other than the man who's currently in the championship, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Nuttall's done the same thing, come all the way through. He's had a few years sabbatical again, like, a bit like I did, just to sort of tick things along. But yeah, we encourage all our drivers. Anyone sat at home watching this racing and thinking this looks incredible, the Caterham Academy, go and have a look at that online. Go and have a sign up, and it leads you all the way through this amazing ladder of motorsport up to this pinnacle of championship. It's Stephen Nuttall really lighting up the rear wheels there, trying to get some temperature in, and it leads you all there step by step. And it's great to see drivers as they step up through the thing. We saw the 270 race just now, and we'd love to see them in those 310s next year and going at it all again in sort of slightly faster, more capable equipment. And
there will be 310R drivers that will be moving up into 7 UKs. There'll be some other drivers who we understand, of course, are returning as well. There'll be some other drivers that have been competing regularly this season that couldn't make it this weekend that will also be back. So lots of prospect for this one. But of course, we're all getting set to try and find our second ever British Caterham champion. Field is all set and ready to go for our second race of the weekend for the Caterham 7 Champion UK. Red lights go out now. Decent start from pole, but Stephen Nuttall gets a really good jumper from the back row of the grid. And Gordon Sorrow is not hanging around. He splits both Colt, Chris Aubrey and Jake Swan-Dixon, gets boxed in behind Henry Heaton. He's boxed, he's got nowhere to go. He's got the edge of the track to the right. So the left, he's got Aubrey. In front of him, he's got Henry Heaton. Now they come up through the right-hander at Charlie's for the first time. It's double apex right-hander, and it is Stephen Nuttall who leads. It's then James Murphy in second place, Heaton's third, Gordon Sawyer already up to fourth and not hanging around. Swan-Dixon fifth and Chris Aubrey sixth. And already there's a challenge on. Heaton's trying to get on the back of James Murphy up towards Park Corner for the first time. Here we go for second place. Down the outside for the second place for the lead. Big lock up from Gordon Sawyer as he just about holds onto the car. He turned in. Chris Hutch's eyes widened as he saw that. He thought it was going to the back of him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, slightly cold front tyre grabbed, or a slightly cold brake maybe grabbed that wheel, and might have a flat spot on that. So he's obviously had a really good start off the line, but that is going to affect him. Heaton actually got around the outside of Murphy there. Murphy got a bit compromised and held up by Nuttall. There was nowhere for him to go, and Heaton was on his outside. So Heaton made a good recovery there from third, which is not where he wants to be. He was pushed then back into second. So we'll keep an eye whether Gordon actually does have a problem with that flat spot. You'll start seeing it lock up more if he does have a flat spot there. You'll see some more smoke off it the next few times we come up into that bend.
So over the mountain for the first time, these cars arguably can produce the biggest air from it. As you see Chris Aubrey with a perfect example, leaping over the mountain. And then the way they wind their way into the all bend is quite a sight to watch. There's Jake Swan-Dixon. He's been quite impressive. He's been impressive, but on and off throughout the season. There have been weekends where he hasn't really had the pace to keep up towards the front, and others where he's been right on it with the leaders. This is kind of one of those weekends where, regardless of how many cars are on the field, he's up there towards the front and battling, but he has mixed fortune. Sometimes he has ups and downs this season, so I think one thing he wants to try and find next year is a little bit more consistency to be up there towards the front. If he's going to be a regular front runner, he needs to find that little bit more to be consistent across all circuits rather than just one or two.
I've been racing in the kind of same areas as Jake for quite a lot of this season. I mean, he is a very rapid driver for sure. He's constantly sort of up there in that sort of third and fourth places, or fourth and fifth, and sort of around those areas. And yeah, you're right. If he could get that little bit more consistency, he's a real challenge. Challenge for the title. He's certainly got all the racecraft. We saw a couple of incidents, and he didn't take part in the first round of the season, which has sort of cost him for the rest of this the events. But nevertheless, he has definitely got all of the tools in the box. He just needs to work out how to use them all.
He's currently using them to hold on to fifth position at the moment. Chris Aubrey staying in close proximity as well, just behind him. Top four turning in through Mansfield. Jake Swan-Dixon doing his best to keep up with them. So now Heaton has now taken to the front, so now Henry Heaton has got around Stephen Nuttall on this occasion. So it's Heaton then who leads them into the mountain section for the second time. There he is, the chrome turquoise car, the self-run family team, Team Heaton. Gordon Sawyer leaping over the mountain. He takes his turn to get all four wheels off the ground. There is Gordon. Former 310R champion from 2019. He was 310R champion, the year after yourself, Chris. And then it was spent last season competing in the 7 UK Championship, getting used to the cars, and then of course this brand new spec for this year. There's James Murphy. Across the line he goes in third place. Henry Heaton with the fast lap of the race, first proper flying lap around this time.
we saw yesterday Heaton was incredibly fast around that last section of the race, and it looks last section of the track, and it looks like that's continuing today. But Nuttall able to sort of keep up with him through, or in fact draw him back in through this fast stuff. Yeah, had great fun battling with Gordon Soy. He's a great friend in the paddock as well. It's good fun, and he's always it's a fun race that you have with Gordon all the time. But yeah, Heaton there did manage to set that clean, fast lap in clean air, and has managed to maintain that lead over Steve going into Park Bend, which is the most critical part. It looks like this is spread out into that nice toe situation where everyone's going to be getting fast lap times now.
So we're just trying to spread eagle a little bit as they come up through the gooseneck down the hill towards Mansfield. There's James Murphy just holding on to third place. There's a nickname I like to call him, which is Superman, because usually when he gets towards deeper in the field, he's usually someone who can just carve his way through. The reason why he got that nickname was all the way back in 2018 at Thruxton, where he was in contention for the title. I think it was for the Road Sport title. Had a mishap in the first race, and to charge his way through from the back of the grid, he had to get himself a strong result to keep himself with any chance of the championship. Picked up third place, and to celebrate that, he got out of the car and then proceeded to lay across the roll cage and stick his arm out like Superman, hence the nickname. All he's missing is the cape. Now through the right-hander at the hairpin up towards the bar now for the end of lap 3. Doing a good job is James. He's not too far away from his DPR teammate. Now they head to the inside line, just trying to get the shortest possible run down towards turn 1, and also the fact they hug the pit wall also doubles up as the outside line, the racing line for turn 1, which is the uphill left-hander of Coppice. They come up through Charlie's.
Heaton again stretching that lead on that lap, another fastest lap, and you can see that gap there. We did see this yesterday though, and it didn't last, so it looks like it's a fairly sizable lead at this point, but nevertheless we've seen that all closes up, and Swan Dixon now is clear of Aubrey there, looking to catch up with Sawyer at this point.
So the two DPR teammates will probably try and start to work together a little bit more, and if they can try and pull in Team Heaton. But I have to say one thing with Henry is that we talk about the fact he's an independent team, and we spoke about it yesterday as well, the fact that he goes up against some of the bigger teams like DPR, you can't help but admire and be impressed by just how much of a great effort that him and his team, it's a small base of family effort, as Nuttall makes a big lock up into Mansfield, so he's doing exactly the same that Sawyer did as well, to come on towards it. But Henry's team doesn't have the biggest of facilities, has its own little small awning, they also run and tweak it together, and that just shows that Henry, it's a small effort, but it's a mighty effort in terms of the fact that he can take it to some of the bigger teams that run bigger outfits and run bigger rosters of cars. He can take it to them and just on setup or just pace alone, he's got the pace not just match them, but be ahead of them and start to pull away too. Yep,
so I started racing with Henry back in 2013 for our academy season, and we have been absolutely, competitors with each other ever since. And but our families have sort of get on very well in the paddock, and we, call it Team Dad Racing. And what it is a testament to the fact that Caterham racing is so well regulated and so even that actually you don't have to run with a team to be out there. It's a great advert for Caterham racing that Henry and his family, which is absolutely his mum and dad and his girlfriend and sisters that run him out of their awning, and it's great to see that Caterham is so even and fair that an independent can come along here and do this.
Yeah, all the engines come from the same, all the cars essentially are built in-house by Caterham and then sold on to teams that want to pick them up, so all the engines are sourced the same, they all come from the same factory, also all the engines, so these cars are very built essentially as equally as they can be made in terms of practically bang on equal all the time. So it purely is down to who can drive them the hardest, who can get the most out of the setup, and that's what makes them such an even playing field and such a fantastically open championship for anyone to come into it, whether it's a bigger team or a smaller team. Again, you're absolutely right, there is an option for anyone if you're quick enough to be able to come to the front and actually drive the car to the front and take on the victory. So good to see that Henry & Co are definitely having a grand job so far.
Every single part of these cars is absolutely stipulated and regulated against, so there's nothing you can do to gain a performance advantage just on buying parts and things like that. So yeah, absolutely, and our scrutineering is stringent after every single race, and before and during our race weekends to make sure that everything remains on a par.
So currently the two DPR teammates are off, well obviously there's three in the sit build at the moment, are still keeping pretty close to each other. They're on a par with each other, so to speak. It's still Nuttall and Murphy pushing themselves along as they come up towards Coppice again. This is now lap 6. And just to remind those who might have watched this championship before and seen that the race was a little bit smaller, shorter in terms of time length. There used to be half-an-hour races, but because of the increased grip levels from the bespoke Avon tyres, which are the slicks and wets that they run now for 2021, the uprated suspension and the increased rev limit, because these cars are much faster in the corners. Because of that, as we see now, a change for second place, and James Murphy breezes past Stephen Nuttall into second place. Because of that, they had to change the format from 2 30-minute races, like you get with the 270Rs or the 310Rs, down to 3 20-minute races. Because if they're trying to go half an hour, physically wise, these cars are so demanding and have so much grip in the corners that, in terms of the forces that you'd experience, half an hour would have just been almost too long for some drivers.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible the amount of grip these cars have, and the steering is actually quite heavy, especially around some of the tighter bends. That you really do, your arms are absolutely having a workout, and the physicals of the G-forces we're experiencing, especially if we fling it around here into the mountain. The slick tyres really allow us to carry that speed, which is why you see the cars really taking off here. I mean, all the Caterhams are taking off this weekend, but the 420, the Caterham 7 UK car is actually, incredible around that section. But yeah, it really is, for anyone who doesn't really drive and maybe again is watching thinking it can't be that hard, you're just sitting down turning the wheel. Genuinely, I encourage you to try one of these cars around a track like this. This is probably the most intense we've had all season on the physical nature of it. And Henry certainly takes his fitness seriously. He's into his running at the moment, and he's showing that he's showing a clean pair of heels at the moment, isn't he?
I had the privilege at a development that to be invited down to the Caterham development day to Bedford Autodrome towards the beginning of the season, and to have a go at a couple of the Caterhams, including one of the last year's specification 420Rs. And I'd driven the 270R race car before then, and it felt like I was going as fast of a 270R race car when it was going at 85, 90 miles an hour. When I was driving one of these cars, the 2020 spec, which still had the slightly grooved ZZR or ZZS tyres, it felt like I was going at the same sort of speed, but I was doing 60 or 70 miles down the corners. That's how much grip these cars are. They're lightweight. They've got a punchy sequential gearbox where it's not a flappy paddle where you just, in a high-performance supercar where you just flick the paddles. You have to really pull the shifter to actually grab a gear, and they have to use the clutch on the downshift to try and go down through the gears. But it's such an experience, and the way these cars accelerate off the corners as well is just something else. They are absolute rocket ships off of the corners. So they are. In some cases, when you're not driving them at the limit, they can be quite user-friendly because they offer so much grip. When you push them as hard as these guys are, they are absolutely incredible. As you know, full work for driving from this year, they are such a physical car to drive these Caterhams, and the fact you've got so many forces on top of that, not only they twitch you a little bit, but of course they give you so much cornering force that you have to try and really make sure that you've got quite a strong upper body to try and hold on to these cars before eventually they might snap back and go the other way.
And it's not only have we got the slick tyres this year, a lot of the parts have been uprated, so we've got actually sort of more camber available to us on the wheels, and the suspension's all a lot stiffer all around, so it's dampers and springs all adjusted for this season to allow for those slick tyres. But what it means is it's a really stiff platform. If we look at the Academy that we saw sort of last time out at Snetterton, they kind of lean into all the corners. You won't see these cars lean on the camera anywhere near as much, and in fact that's one of their sort of things. As you go up through the ladder, everything just gets more racy, and this is the ultimate incarnation. It's a fantastic car, as we say multiple times, and yeah, we're looking forward to seeing new drivers come in, and existing drivers, and some people coming up to the championship. So it's going to be an exciting proposition for next season for sure.
Certainly will be. I think everyone should be looking forward to it for next year, particularly when see a few more of these. Just to clarify in terms of how many drivers have passed through, I think if I'm right, I was calculating on this spreadsheet, we've had I think 18 drivers compete this season in the 7 UK Championship, but there's been the drivers including Caterham's Racing CEO Graham McDonald. He's, for me, always reminds me of a modern day Peter Wheeler. For those who know, Peter Wheeler used to take charge of TVR, and they had the fearsome TVR Tuscan Challenge. He used to, for several years, I'm sure from the start of it right to the end, he used to race in his own championship, and Graham McDonald is actually a bit unique in that sense, in that he's not just jumped into the top level Caterhams, he's taken essentially the route that every other one of his Academy customers has taken. He's gone from starting his racing life in the Academy and going up each year into Road Sport, then 270, then 310, and then this year the Caterham 7 UK Championship. And I think that's a brilliant thing to do for someone who is the CEO of a manufacturer, a sports car manufacturer that has these these spec championships, because the best thing he's got is an exact understanding of what his customers go through, and it gives him a chance to, it gives him and Caterham the chance to offer the best experience possible, because they understand from a racing perspective what racing drivers want, what they like, what they don't like, and therefore it's only benefits to make the experience for those drivers coming up much better going forward into the next few seasons.
And just like all his customers, he had to, in the Academy and Road Sport, look after that car himself. Team sport allowed in those lower two categories. As you get to 270, 310, and now the Caterham 7 UK Championship, yes, you can have team support and transport and things like that. But yeah, he absolutely was out in there in the paddock with everybody else, getting stuck in, and it's a shame he's not here this weekend to finish off his season. But out front, well, not out front, front here. In fact, Henry's disappearing off out front, isn't he? But Stephen Nuttall is back in charge of this group of cars we've got here. But Sawyer, who we saw lock up early on, is actually still there and actually looking at this. It's a sort of DPR trio here, isn't it, for the bottom 2 steps of the podium at the moment, as Henry goes past our commentary box and has got a sort of 4-second lead now over this trailing 3-pack.
So now wind back into the hall bends now, just about 6.5 minutes to go. It's the DPR trio now in 2nd, 3rd and 4th. So kind of, in this case, whilst they're sort of doing their best to try and keep up with Henry Heaton, it's currently looking like 2nd, 3rd and 4th, a little bit like a DPR, what I call a DPR racing demonstration in terms of these 3 cars all together, line and stern. I'm not sure if they're going to get into too much battling, or whether they're just going to stay in range and just bag the points for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, or whether they're having a bit of a run of basically following each other round, and then of course when they get to the closer part, the next last couple of minutes, then they'll start to a bit more of a tussle. But whether or not they've just realised that it's more trying to help Stephen pick up the title, particularly with James trying to play a rear gunner here. Either way, these guys just keeping it calm, keeping it steady, and just keeping the car on the road and keeping out of trouble before they get to the checker flag.
Yeah, and we saw Jake there on camera briefly, sort of in a lonely 5th place at the moment, isn't he? And I know he's going to be really disappointed with that. He was really looking solid for a podium yesterday, and I know he wanted to move that forward and go get one of those trophies today. But it does look like it's going to be between the DPR teammates here, and you know, there's interesting psychology here. Obviously, Steve all but won the championship anyway, and James desperately wants to beat Gordon in the championship, but it requires quite a switch around, so that's all looking like it's settling itself for what can do. You know, it just means they can go race now. They're free to do what they want to do, and I know these drivers very well, and I know that they all want to get the better of each other, because it's the bragging rights back in the tent and between themselves.
Yeah, as we talked about, it's the bragging rights to take into next season, thinking, yeah, well, I won the last race of the season, I was ahead of you in that race, and that's the whole camaraderie and the kind of friendly rivalry between them that they're taking to next year to try and get one up on next year. It's the memories they'll carry from this year into next year to think, right, what can I do to beat them next year? What can I do to improve my pace? What can I do to get myself a bit further towards the front? What can I do to improve my lap times? It's all the things that drivers will think about going into the winter and in the testing that they'll do in the run-up to the start of the next season. That's the things that they'll think about to try and make sure that they are on point for the 2022 season, where hopefully we'll look to try and find our 3rd ever British Catering champion. It looked after John Byrne picked up his 2nd top flight Caterham Motorsport title in a row, and he became the 1st British Catering champion last year. Of course, it looks as though, provisionally at least, that Stephen Nuttall is on course. Although I have noticed, I think, as you probably just noticed as well, Gordon Sawyer not quite the same place. I think he's probably just backed off and probably just decided that maybe 4th place is as high as he can get and just bagging the points to get it.
I don't think he would do that. I'm not sure what's gone on there, whether he's had an issue, because he wouldn't want to be caught by Jake, that's for sure, and he's sort of still looking slightly off the pace there. So either he's had an issue, he's just getting back up to speed, or he has got a bit of an issue on that car, so keep an eye on that. He certainly wouldn't naturally just drop off that battle, he wouldn't want it, but equally James Murphy has, he does look like Gordon may be back up to speed now, so that's looking good. So maybe just an incident there, but Nuttall may well have broken James here as well, and yeah, James will be looking at that car disappearing off and thinking, right, I better go and sort something, unless James and Sawyer had a bit of a sort of a switch, or a sort of incident, should we say, where they were trying to overtake each other, and maybe that's what split it up a little bit.
Potentially. I did notice he was quite a bit far back in terms of where he was, so particularly a lap ago, so yeah, he's just not quite at the same pace. You can see Jake Small-Dixon actually is closing in pretty quickly, so I have to correct myself. I think you are right. I think maybe not all is well with that 91 car. I think it's the last couple of laps here, and what this will be is incentive for Jake Small-Dixon. Whether it's a problem or not, Jake will send this as a chance here to give himself a good 4th place to get a decent result before the final race later on this afternoon. If he can get this 4th position, it will be a really strong result for him and give him a lot more confidence to try and get possibly even a podium for the final race of the season, to again end his season on a high and give himself the confidence to go into next year knowing that he can get on the podium more than once.
Yeah, like I said, he wouldn't have been happy where he was, and so now this gives him an extra thirst into that last 3 minutes of the race. Can he actually reel Sawyer in and take that place from him? Sawyer was quick off the line today, wasn't he? He was absolutely rapid, at the quickest of the lot. He just didn't have anywhere to use it by the time his car was up into that lead group. But yeah, here we still got Nuttall, and that gap between him and Murphy has now evaporated again, as you might expect. And with 2.5 minutes to go, I imagine that Murphy's trying to work out exactly where he's quick and what he's quick in comparison to. But here's Heaton out front here now with nearly a 6-second lead, or coming towards that 6-second lead. He leaps over the mountain once more, and you can see physically there the gap on screen between him and the trailing two now, rather than the trio. So it's definitely between these two for who's going to get second and third. And yeah, Murphy can Sawyer then now stay ahead. He's only a couple of seconds now ahead of Swan Dixon.
The fact he's lapping so quickly, he's still going to have 2 more laps to go. It might only be a 20-minute race, but the power and the grip that these cars have and the pace that they have showing around the circuit like this, they are by far the fastest cars we've got this weekend that are competing with these slick tyres. And so they're not the absolute fastest cars and machines that we've had around the circuit. The lap record that's held around here is held by, it was broken a couple of months ago, in fact, actually by one of the British supercars that were here for their final rounds. Their final rounds of their 3 meeting season.
It's not such a narrow track for them, is it?
No, it's not, but it's for them, it's still quite a quick one. I think the lap record around here is about 1 minute, I think it's a 1:20, I think it is, which is incredibly, you think about it on a circuit like this, it's so winding. But again, 1:29 for these cars is absolutely not slow at all. That's them purely pushing as hard as possible. The fastest lap of the race is still with Henry Heaton, 1:29.156. So again, that pace has been extending, has been pretty mega as they continue on to these last couple of laps. Just watching second and third, Stephen Nuttall and James Murphy in flying formation at the moment, but Nuttall, I'm sure, is just doing everything he needs to keep it calm, keep it steady, and just about the points he needs to, again, pretty much just put one hand on the trophy to get this done. It's not obviously fully done until we get to the final race of the season when that's completed, but effectively this race will, in many cases, put him in line to become champion-elect. In many cases, second place should be enough to do that, which means I'm sure for the last race he'll want to get a good result, but I'm sure he'll just take it nice and steady, try not to get involved in too much, and just reel off the laps, get the result he needs to kind of pretty much put it out totally and comfortably out of reach and get the job done. Speaking of getting the job done, Henry Heaton onto the last lap of the race. He's done this once before in the season. He just shows that when it all gets hooked up together, not even Stephen Nuttall can keep up with him. He is absolutely blisteringly fast in these kind of cars. Yeah,
stunningly quick, hasn't he? Been right out of the box today. He dropped back to third initially off of that start, where we had some really good starts from other drivers, but he did drop back to that third place. But he immediately got back to second, and then by the next lap he was out front, leaving I think it was 2 or 3 lap record quickest laps in a row, and just broke that toe. Whereas yesterday he didn't manage to break that toe back to Nuttall, and actually managed, and Nuttall dragged back up to him. It didn't happen today, did it? So equally, Sawyer, obviously, I watched him out the window. He's definitely up to speed, but it does look like Nuttall has also got the best of Murphy on this last lap, and certainly now that it's pretty much single file unless you make a mistake. But yeah, what a great race by Heaton here to take well, he's not crossed the line yet. I shouldn't predict this too much, but yeah, definitely looks like he's going to take that win and get the fastest lap, but he can't do any more than that.
Absolutely not. It's been quite a mega effort all season long for him, and they turn their way into the final few corners. Henry Heaton sweeps his way through and is on course to take another victory. Whereas now second and third are still nose to tail. Murphy's just pushing Nuttall a little bit more towards the end as he really gets that brilliant leap over the... That's a great shot, and I know that John Bryant's been taking some more of those all 4 wheels in the air shots for these cars. I think John Byrne started the first one here a couple of years ago, and everyone's trying to imitate that shot but there's no imitation for victory here, because Henry Heaton goes up to the checkered flag, and another brilliant victory. He's already signaling with thumbs up to his team on the pit wall. It's another win for Henry Heaton, a brilliant dominant performance in the second Caterham 7 Championship UK race. Stephen Nuttall comes across the line to pick up second, and it's pretty much one hand on the championship trophy for this season. It's James Murphy who picks up third. Gordon Sawyer does hold on to fourth and picks up his pace in the end. James Dixon was still pushing to the end. He set up his personal best on the last lap and took 5th. And then it will be Chris Aubrey who collects the final finishing position in 6th place in a few moments' time. He'll heading out past us at the mountain here, so we've got a few moments to wait until he crosses the line. But again, what a drive by Henry Heaton, and if he isn't going to become champion this year, he's driven essentially like one in waiting practically all year.
And I just saw David Rode, team manager of DPR, go and shake Henry's dad's hand in the pit lane. You know, in DPR squad, we know how hard we're pushing, and for Henry to disappear off up the road, no mean feat at all. And I think that handshake says a lot there, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely brilliant for Henry there to win, and Chris Aubrey just crossing the line there in that 6th place.
Great stuff for everyone involved. So Henry, I'm sure if he sticks around for next year, I'm pretty certain for me, he's my favourite for next year's championship if he sticks around for next year, because if you put some more drives like that, even with more drivers in the field, I'm sure that he'll be someone who everyone's going to be gunning for, because, again, if he's able to do that and win the championship, particularly as a small independent team as well, that will be, as you say, the perfect advert to show that literally, regardless of the size of your team, and even this race, anyone can win in this top level championship if you've got the right equipment and you're that talented. So Henry Heaton with another win in the Caterham 7 Championship UK for 2021. It has Stephen Nuttall, who is just about that close to the championship title in the final race. James Murphy picks up third. Gordon Sawyer dropped back to finish fourth. Then Dex Swan Dixon and Chris Aubrey.